Hello Facebook, hello YouTube, what is up everybody? This is Ruben and I'm back with another Ruben Report. Today I have some unexpected bad news. For the past couple of days I've actually been using my truck to go to work because I've been just letting the bike sit. But as I was using my truck to go to work, for the past month and a half, I've really just been letting my truck sit because I was using the bike to save money on gas so much. And in the time that it was sitting, I believe some of the gaskets started to erode. And so it's now developed a coolant leak down here. I don't know if you can see it down there, but pretty much. And it's not anything simple either, unfortunately. It's going to be the timing cover gasket on this old truck. It's down right there. So this is going to be a project that I'm going to have to tackle over I don't know how many days. I just don't have the time to do it. So this pretty much forces me now to have to use the bike for transportation, unfortunately. Hearing from the feedback, a lot of you are of the mindset or have the idea that I am the reason why the problems that I've been having with my bike is caused due to me overloading it. And to be honest with you, when I bought this bike, I really had no idea that it had a weight limit. I mean, let me not say that. All bikes have a weight limit per se. Every bike has a weight limit, but it just wasn't listed anywhere. And so because it wasn't listed anywhere, I just read up on Google or read up in the forums, saw where everybody else was experiencing with their bikes. There's guys out there who are just as heavy as I am, folks who ride 2-up, folks who actually go on adventure rides and load this thing up completely, and we're riding just fine. So I didn't really think there was going to be any different for me, just getting on it and taking my laptop, my lunch, and my water bottle to work. But it is although other folks have not really experienced the issue that I've been having, it is something that I'm willing to take into consideration. So I have come up with the idea. In order to test that theory, mainly because I was looking up on the internet as well, and when it comes to me sitting on this bike with my gear on, I'm somewhere around probably like 315, 320 maybe. That's like with me fully dressed with all my gear on, helmet, jacket, and potentially, the laptop and the lunch and, all the stuff that I've just said prior before. But I'll get a more accurate number on that in just a bit. But yeah, but let's just say for the sake of argument, maybe 320, maybe 325. With a weight limit of only 277 pounds, that's pretty low. That's pretty restricted. I had no idea that the weight limit was potentially that low. But all the research that I was doing, as far as I was trying to find any article that I could that could tie premature valve wear or just engine wear in general could be tied to a bike being overloaded by, 30, 40, 50 pounds. And I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find anything that was conclusive to draw a conclusion to say, because the bike had this much more weight, it had premature engine wear. I did find a lot of articles about the way that it affects handling, stopping distance, tire wear, and brake wear. And that's definitely something that I believe I experienced as well. But just because I haven't found any articles out there, maybe it's not. Maybe it is true. Maybe it's true that the valves tightening up very prematurely is due to me overloading the bike. So I have the idea. This is my idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to strip this bike of every component that I possibly can to reduce the weight as much as possible. So that means all the boxes, all the crash bars, fenders, everything that just doesn't need to be there is just coming off. Windshield, all of it. We're going to take everything off. We're going to measure, weigh how much that is to see how much weight loss that we have, and then hopefully we can calculate the tolerances of the GVWR and see whether or not I'm under it, which I hope I probably would be. I've already read on forums that the crash bars and the boxes, it's quite a bit of weight with just those taken off. But I'm going to be going above and beyond because I want to be well under it. And with being well under it, hopefully, we will be able to then adjust the valves, and we'll be able to test whether or not the rider's weight truly has an effect on the valves becoming tighter over time. And I'm going to be doing this test the same way that I did all the previous tests before. But in particular with this test, I think it's very important that I record my rides just so it's documented that I'm actually riding it at 7K RPMs, and also that I'm riding it on my commute route, 60 miles each way. Another thing that's going to be important to note, or maybe document, will be all the typical signs of potential valve gap decreasing. So that'll be power, MPG, the RPMs, you name it. Everything's going to be constantly monitored to see whether we're going to be progressing towards the valves getting tighter. So that is my plan. So sorry, no, the bike is not for sale anymore. I'm kind of forced to use it, and I think that the results of this test will be quite important as well, because I'm not the only person out there who is a much heavier guy. I mean, come on, 277 pounds, that's pretty low. And I think that's something that should be posted on the actual website so that folks actually know what the limit is of this bike, because that outrules quite a bit of folks. I mean, that outrules almost all kind of adventure riding. I mean, come on. You get a 200-pound dude, add a couple Farkles here and there, you know, heated grips and all this other kind of stuff, you know, center stand, and you get your extra fuel in the back, and, you know, get your clothes and all your extra tools and whatnot. I mean, almost anybody can overload this bike and right quickly. So I think it's very important to be able to conduct this test, because this could affect a lot of folks, and not just, you know, little old big old me who just uses this bike to commute back and forth from work every day. This can affect, you know, everyone out there, whether you're just as big as me, or whether you're an actual adventure rider, or maybe you like to ride this bike 2-up. I really want to get to the bottom of this issue. Also, when it comes to the issue that's at hand, the engine being the way that it is, the last time that this happened, we did the bore snake camera video to look at the valves. We took the bike all the way down to CSC, and the verdict of, after opening up the engine and all that stuff, they said it was it was normal wear and tear, so that, like, there was nothing wrong. They were saying that the valves were out of adjustment, and they just replaced the top end anyway, just to be safe. But here we are with the same issue again. I'm just gonna go ahead and say maybe this engine is just fine as well. Possibly, actually, it's doing a lot better than the first engine did, as far as the space in between valve adjustments. It's been a little bit better. And I think the main reason why this engine has done quite a bit better than the last engine, if you pay close attention to all my old valve adjustment videos, I was adjusting them to the spec of 0.06. Okay, 0.06 was more on the, I guess, in the middle. The range is anywhere between 0.04 millimeters up to 0.08 millimeters. And so, let's just say, for example, the first time that the first engine failed, the gap, or the duration, was about 750 something miles. We'll go over all the different maintenance items and things that I've done so far, just so that everybody's kind of up to pace as well. But 757 miles was how long the first valve adjustment, well, after the initial valve adjustment at 500 miles, it lasted all the way up to 1257 miles, I believe. So that was 757 miles of riding with the first engine before the first failure. On this bike, I almost doubled that mileage up to 1644. And the reason being is because I adjusted, every time that I adjusted the valves on the new engine, it's always been at the much larger spec, more closer to 0.008. I actually use a 0.076 millimeter shim. That's because that's just the closest thing that I have to the 0.08. I lost my old feeler gauge somewhere. I don't know where it went. So with those type of results, the riding has been the same. The rider has been the same. Arguably, I've actually added a little bit more weight with the top box and with the new top box, and yeah, I've doubled the valve gap longevity. And I'm noting this just because I just want to make sure that we have like a baseline of what's actually going on, because with the old engine, we had the first failure at 7:57, and then we had every other consecutive failure after that. It was about 200 miles. Once it was like almost 300 miles. And for this new engine, it was 1,644, and then the next one was 691. So basing off that trend, hopefully with stripping the bike down, we'll be able to see whether or not the weight really plays a big role. And hopefully, if we do actually exceed 691 miles before needing a valve adjustment, well, then it will be conclusive that weight plays some factor. If it's the same, or if it actually gets worse, well, then that'll indicate something else. And my whole theory of why this is all happening is more tied to frequency of use versus rider weight. Because once again, there's a bunch of folks out there who are, again, just as heavy as I am, or ride 2 up, or do actual adventure rides and are fully loaded down, and again, don't report any issues. However, the main difference between me and, I won't say all, but a good bit of other folks out there is that I'm riding this bike every single day. Every single day. And I have really put a considerable amount of miles on this bike, even with all the hiccups that I've had. Had I had no issues with this bike would be well over 7,000 miles right now in the short 7 months that I've had it, or 6 months. Yeah, a little over 6 months that I've had it. So I'm putting a lot of miles on this thing. I am using this day in, day out. 7,000 miles in 1 year. No, not even 1 year, in 6 months. That's a lot of miles. And that is my theory, is that it's the frequency of use that has the biggest impact on the valves acting the way that they are. But we'll see. We'll do this experiment. We'll run our test. We'll see whether or not what the results may be. And so yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and start getting to work on this. We're gonna talk about, because another thing I kind of want to address as well. There's quite a few new folks in the group, or just folks that have been quite out of the loop when it comes to my whole situation, and I understand it's quite confusing. So what I think is going to be very helpful is, one, there's a video that I made a very long time ago now called "Should You Buy a CSC Motorcycle to Save Money on Gas?" That video is a very lengthy video, but if you have the patience to actually watch through it all, you'll get a much better understanding of my thought process on why it is that I actually bought this bike, and what my whole goal is with this bike. And it'll be really interesting to see exactly what motivated me to do it, and yeah, what my plans and goal was. I never had another thing I wanted to address, I never ever had the intention of trying to defame CSC or anything of that nature. I'm just a guy who wanted to save money on gas. Just started to get into motorcycles. I'm a new rider, and running into all these different issues, I mean, it's very frustrating and very discouraging, especially when I thought, on paper, this bike was supposed to do certain things. So I don't want you guys to take my frustration or my disappointment as me having some type of agenda. From the beginning, I just wanted to be very transparent, very honest, and unbiased about my experience with this bike. And I hope you seeing the videos that I made from the very beginning, I hope you'll be able to see what kind of heart and what kind of motive I've had from the very start. It was just the unfortunate events that had compiled as the months went on that turned my attitude quite sour, and understandably so. And also for you guys to get a full understanding about those types of incidences or those types of issues that I was actually having, I'm going to give you guys a glimpse or a glance at my whole maintenance log. I actually finally wrote it. I wrote it last week, so you'll actually get to see everything that I've done to the bike, and you'll also see what it is that I mean when I say I don't want to have to do repetitive major maintenance. I've definitely done a lot of maintenance on this bike, but the major maintenance which is, you know, adjusting the valves and other really serious stuff. It's serious stuff in my book. You'll see how frequent it has been and how frustrating it has been. But before we cut to that, I'm going to give you guys the mileage one more time. Which it's pretty much been the absolute same. I have not ridden it at all since my last video. Okay, 5,111.3 miles. I'm making it a habit to include my mileage in every video because it's already proven to be so valuable when I was going back through the archives to build up that maintenance log. All right, I'll let you guys see the maintenance log now. All right, everyone. Well, here is the maintenance log that I finally was able to put together to pretty much give a visual summary of all the different modifications, upgrades, maintenances, and repairs that I've done to the motorcycle at all of their mileage intervals and also the dates that they occurred. And I have them color coded here as well. Everything with a blue star is upgrades or new components that were installed, which are pretty much the majority of what goes on here. We have oil changes, where changes of the filters and oil. The red stars are the ones that are pretty much the main concern here, which is going to be the valve adjustments or any other major maintenance. And orange is more minor maintenance. So minor maintenance is inspecting, adjusting, lubricating, okay? Stuff that you generally do every week, every other week. Quite a few of those as well. And then we have the pink. This pink one, it kind of goes in line with any of these other things. I mean, pink in itself, it doesn't necessarily stand alone. It can be pink and red together. As you can see here, we have quite a few maintenances that have quite a few stars together with them. But just in general, if you see those stars, those are the color codings, and that's what they mean. So starting from the beginning here, let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit more here. Okay, so starting from the beginning, I just bought my bike on the January 15th. January 16th, we just started to try to put miles on the bike, and before we went out, we went ahead and installed the tall seat and all the different little goodies that I got from CSC before I headed out. Next, we installed the LED headlight at 131 miles. By the way, for most of these dates and most of these mileage intervals, if you go back into the Reuben Reports archive on either the Facebook groups, most likely in the Facebook groups, you will definitely see posts for pretty much all these dates that I'm mentioning, except for a few. But almost every single one of these dates, there is a post that is tied to it on the Reuben Reports, or just on my Facebook page, and you'll be able to see exactly when all these different things were done. And I can show you that in a little bit. Actually, we can just go to it right now. So here's the RX3, RX4, RX6 owner group. It's the same thing on the CSC RX, or just CSC motorcycle owners group in general. You can do the same thing. You can go to my account, just scroll all the way down from the very beginning here. Man, I've made so many different posts, and you can catch up with all the different maintenance and all the different things that I've been doing with the bike since day one. Okay, I went ahead and spared you guys some of the scrolling. So here it is. Here's the first post of my RX3. It got delivered on January 15th. Then the next day, January 16th, I installed all the accessories. I didn't take pictures, but the following day after, I went ahead and took pictures. And you got the center stand, the tall seat, my phone holder, and other little miscellaneous things that I installed. The next day, which is also in the maintenance log here, LED light, headlight install. Okay, and there's that video there. We then continue to put miles on the bike. Went grocery shopping for the first time. My first oil change is at 248 miles. Okay, and here you go. First oil change at 248.3 miles. So you guys get the picture. If you want to see what's been going on with my bike, or you want to see kind of what my whole background and backstory has been, you can go to the Facebook group and go ahead and dig into the archives, man. Everything is here and on display to see how my ownership experience has been thus far. But we're going to address what I mean by major maintenances. And as you look at this maintenance list here, the majority of these maintenances are like I stated before, adding new components, doing an oil change, simple stuff, lubing the chain or the wishbone bearings. Actually, let me go to that one post, because here I had some like weird squeak noise happen with my bike when I would sit on it. And there was this video that Joe Berg made a long time ago, while he was still working for CSC, and he was saying that if you lube the wishbone bearings, that'll make your squeaky noise go away. And I took them out, and as you can see, like the wishbone bearings, they were just like bone dry. But lubing my wishbone bearings did not solve the issue. Okay, so unfortunately I still had the squeaky noise until later on. It just like simply went away for some reason. I can't explain it. It just somehow disappeared. Then we had our first valve adjustment here. So valve adjustments, they are red stars, but if they're supposed to be at a specific interval, like this is a scheduled maintenance. So this is, if you see red just by itself, those are more like interruptions, major interrupted maintenance versus a scheduled maintenance. It's different. So this red star is okay. But as we go on here, we have some more oil changes, regular maintenance installs, really basic stuff, changing oil, inspecting stuff. more upgrades. And once we get to about here at March 19th at 1,265 miles, this is the first time that I actually needed to adjust my valves outside of the scheduled interval. Okay, and again, there's actually no, this one is not listed or posted. I went ahead and did it myself. I didn't post about it. I just adjusted it just because the bike wasn't running the way that it was, but this was that it should. But this was also during the time where I pretty much was doing some of my top speed tests. So just before this, I believe I did my Q&A video, and then I had the 45 tooth rear sprocket install as well. So I did a top speed video for that. Had a little gap in between. We did the 13 tooth front sprocket install and did top speed video for that as well, and MPG test. And then right after this, I started my new job. So as soon as I started my new job, I went to work pretty much one day, and on my way back, I noticed the bike was not performing very well again, and I did another valve adjustment. Now this valve adjustment at 1,421 miles, that one is documented. That one is the reality check update. Yeah, this one here, reliability reality check. This one, I stripped my bolts on the valve covers, and so I recorded this one because of the bolt stripping, and folks within the Facebook group really helped me find ways to get those bolts off, and I replaced those bolts with much higher grade quality bolts. But then I went on, as you can see, yeah, so for valve adjustment number 3 and valve cover bolts upgrade. And so we continue to go on. I put the 44 tooth rear sprocket back in, and we ride for about 300 miles, as we see, and we do another valve adjustment. This one as well. This one on April 7th. This one is not documented, and the reason why I didn't document it is because I didn't really know that it was these valve adjustment issues was that much of a big deal until we finally get to valve adjustment number 5, and that's when I did the post of my bike running like crap, which is here. Okay, and I say in the video that, you know, it is my 5th time doing this, and it truly was my 5th time doing it. And I recorded myself in explicit detail on how I was adjusting the valves. It was quite, how would I say? Folks thought I wasn't reaching top dead center correctly, so I went ahead and decided to record my valve adjustment process in explicit detail once again, so that way if I was doing something wrong, which I really did believe I was doing something wrong, since obviously I was having all these issues, but we found out that I wasn't doing anything wrong. So anyway, I went ahead and did that valve adjustment, and another 180 miles. Had to do another one. And lastly, this valve adjustment here was actually, I experimented with adjusting the valves a little wider gap, but then we have another one here. This is when I finally took a bore scope camera, looked into the engine, and then we went off to CSC to have them rebuild the top end and replace a lot of lost fasteners and things of that nature. So after May 13th, these ones with the brackets, this is the mileage that's on the new engine. Okay, so still pretty simple stuff. This is the first scheduled valve adjustment that happened here, and the first valve adjustment on the new engine lasted for quite a while. We got it all the way down here at 2,146 miles is when we had to happen again. And then, as we know now, very recently, the bike is now at this total mileage currently, and we are on our 9th valve adjustment and weight reduction experiment. So when I say that I don't want to have to do excessive major maintenance, this is exactly what it is that I'm talking about. Within the 5,000 miles that I've owned my bike, and between two different engines, I've had to do valve adjustments 9 times now. Okay, I really should have only had to do it twice, but it's been 9. Okay, and you can see down here all the different stars, you know, how many times I changed oil, how many times I did minor maintenance, new upgrades, and scheduled maintenances, right? And on this other page would be like all the line items I did for like the 2,500 mile maintenance and then the 5,000 mile maintenance. All right, I'm going to let you guys see the progress I've made when it comes to what the rate reduction now, and then we'll come back to talk about some more in-depth statistics and in-depth things about the two different engines and kind of pinpoint what may be happening. Alright, so in this section we're going to talk about some statistics between the two different engines that I've had within my bike up to this point. And I think it's very important to note because I believe there's this misconception that I've been riding on the highway the majority of the time, or riding that red line, or pushing this bike on the highway, and that's the reason why my valves are tightening up prematurely. But if you are to go through my previous posts, there's definitely been times where I've ridden on the highway during those different top speed tests, and especially with the first engine. The actual very first time that I rode on the highway was doing my commute back and forth from work at my old job. That was like my last day of work on my old job. With my old job, I actually rode to a shuttle stop, and the shuttle took me the rest of the way. But for my last day of work, I decided to ride the whole way there, which later I kind of regret, just because it was during the winter time and it was so cold out. But anyway, the longest stretch of highway that I've ever done was done with the first engine, and that highway stretch was 130 miles. And if you were to go back to the old posts and actually look at the miles that are posted within those posts, like this top speed test and all those, for example, I do distinguish between the back road mileage versus the highway mileage. But what I did for this particular highway miles number, I actually went back into my Google Maps history and I tracked how many miles I was actually riding on the highway. Like those miles that are listed within the Facebook posts, that's from gas station to gas station, whereas this number that's shown here with the total highway miles, that's this is the amount of miles that was literally ridden on the highway, not on surface roads, or I didn't include the, you know, from my house to the highway or from my job to the highway. This is specifically how many miles was actually ridden on the highway. And so out of all of the top speed tests that I've done with the first engine, along with a 130 mile trip for my last day commute from work, that was in total 205 highway miles. And out of the total 2,273.3 miles that I had on the first engine, 9% of those total miles were highway miles. And I just think that's very important to note, because when we're getting down into the amount of valve adjustments that I've had to do, I really don't believe it's the highway miles that has the biggest effect. I believe it's more due to me having to ride the bike every single day. So as we go on here, another thing to note, with the first engine, all the valve adjustments that I was doing them with a 0.06 millimeter shim, which is pretty much right smack dab in the middle of the total valve clearance tolerance. Total valve clearance tolerance for the RX3 is 0.04 millimeters all the way up to 0.08 millimeters. And back then I was adjusting them smack dab in the middle at 0.06. Okay. And so as we see here, after our first initial valve adjustment, we have the first valve adjustment, as we also saw within the maintenance log, we had to do it at 1265. So that first one lasted 765 miles. The next one after that lasted only 156 miles. This is when I had to, when I broke my valve cover bolts, or stripped them when I was trying to get them off. This particular valve adjustment lasted almost 300 miles. Okay, and every other valve adjustment after that only lasted 185 miles. So especially when it comes to the riding that was done in between 1720 all the way to 2273, this was all back roads. Okay, all back roads riding to and from work. No highway was done at all. And between 1420 and 1720, there was, I believe, one highway trip potentially. I'm not sure. No, never mind. It was between here when I did the 1445 gearing redo. Yeah, when I did the 1445 gearing redo, there was a highway trip there, but still in total, my highway miles was only 9% of my total miles on the engine. My very last valve adjustment before I sent the bike, or took the bike down to CSC, I tried to adjust it to a 0.08 millimeter gap, but it didn't change anything. Still, even with the wider gap, it only lasted 181 miles before I needed to adjust it again. And each time I needed to adjust it, the bike was showing similar symptoms that was shown in the video that I displayed in my UET update number 7 video, where top speed was restricted, MPG performance was lower as well, exhaust note changed, and the RPMs were higher, or the idle RPMs were higher. Okay, so the second engine, okay, up to this point we have 2,838 miles 0.3 miles on the engine in total, and out of those many miles, 198 of those miles were highway miles. Again, same concept was applied here. I didn't include the trip from my house to the highway or from my job to the highway. It was strictly just the miles where the bike was actually on the highway. And so with the second engine, only 7% of my miles are highway miles. And the valve adjustments so far that were done were always done with a 0.076 millimeter gap. And just off the bat, we have almost twice the durability. Okay, so a little bit more than twice. So if it was twice, it would have been 1530, but we actually went an extra 100 miles. Okay, and mind you, the riding between engine number 1 and engine number 2 is pretty much the same, but the main difference is that the valve adjustment gap was twice as big, or almost twice as big. So that's why it lasted almost twice as long, possibly. And now the next valve adjustment interval that we have now, where we're at now, is 5,111.3 miles, or 2,838.3 miles on the new engine. And so this valve adjustment from the last valve adjustment only lasted 691.4 miles. And following this trend, it kind of goes downhill from the first incident, generally speaking. So, after seeing these statistics and understanding how many miles that were actually ridden on the highway, I don't really believe the highway mileage has much of a significant effect on the valve adjustment gaps, especially when it comes to, like on the old engine, everything from 1,700 miles all the way down, none of it was highway. Okay, and with all, regardless, the valve adjustment intervals did not increase at all. So I hope this gives you guys a better picture, or I really just wanted to also just state a baseline of what's going on, so that way once we actually get to the weight reduction, we have a measurement what we can go off of to really determine what factors make an impact and make a difference when it comes to increasing the valve gap durability. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and cut to pretty much the final product of how much I have stripped away from the bike. You guys will get to see it, and then once we're done with that, I'm gonna go through in explicit detail exactly what has been taken off and how much weight in total has been taken off, and whether or not I've reached my goal of being within the GVWR weight capacity limits. Okay. All right, folks, this is the final product. She is a completely stripped bird. Looks like a naked chicken. No feathers. Pretty much I've taken off every fender that was unnecessary. I took off the mud guards on the front wheel. The back it's still there because the license plate, obviously. I took off the chain guard, the skid plate, windshield, all of the crash bars. I got so much stuff off of this bike. Getting kind of tired now. So there's that, those crash bars, all the plastics. The boxes are filled with stuff. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to weigh everything that has been taken off of the bike all together, and then once we get that number, we will then determine what the new payload capacity is. All right, and I kept my auxiliary lights. I also kept my little plate here, mainly because I actually can't get these bolts out because we're starting to strip from last time. But if I need to go to the grocery store, then I can put my box on there and go a short trip. I don't think a short trip to the grocery store is going to hurt it too much, especially since I'm not riding that fast. Okay, so that's pretty much that. I'm going to wrap this up. We're going to do the valve adjustment probably tomorrow, but it's just going to be the next clip for you guys. So see y'all later. Okay, so now that you guys have seen the final product, do want to disclose there's just about, I believe, 1 or 2 more components that I removed. I definitely did remove the pillion seat, or the back seat, because I just needed the extra little 5 pounds that I have with that, because underneath that pillion seat is also a little tool pouch with some extra tools that I have in there, that I put even more tools in there than what standard comes with the bike, so that I was trying to spare weight as much as I could. So we're going to go over exactly how to calculate the weight capacity of the bike, and I'm also going to show you guys exactly how much I was previously overloading the bike versus what it's going to be at now. So we have a baseline, but once again, just for a disclaimer, as I said before, I really didn't even know that the RX3 had a weight limit that was this low, because it's not posted on the website. It's really not posted anywhere. So this is the first time that it's really been brought to my attention of this potentially having an effect on valve clearance durability, and definitely it's had an effect on gas mileage and top speed and handling. But as far as engine reliability, well, we'll see whether or not it's actually going to make an impact. So starting out, because the actual weight is not listed anywhere, well, the dry weight we do know. So the dry weight of a standard RX3 is 385 pounds. So that's the way that you get it in the showroom floor. That has all the crash bars, all the boxes, everything, but no fluids in it. 385 pounds. Okay, we all know now that the gross vehicle weight rating is 685 pounds, which is, surprisingly enough, the exact same weight rating of the RX4. Okay, so we see here, when it comes to the amount of oil that's in the bike, there's about 3 pounds of oil. We got, on a full tank, that's 22.2 pounds of gas. Gas is generally 6 pounds a gallon. The amount of gallons that the RX4 can, or the RX3, excuse me, can hold is actually not 4.2 gallons. It's realistically 3.7 because the fuel pump's in the way. So with 3.7 gallons of gas, at a full tank, that comes to about 22.2 pounds of gas. We have then we have all of the accessories that I've been adding to the bike over time, and this is kind of like a PSA announcement. Knowing we'll get to there in a moment, but be very careful with the accessories that you add to your bike, because now knowing that the weight capacity is as low as it is, I'm really surprised that as an adventure bike it has a weight limit that's this low. And so yeah, be very cautious about adding certain accessories and loading your bike up for certain activities, because we'll see in a moment. That's 0.2 pounds Bluetooth. For my Bluetooth sensors, it's negligible. 17 pounds for the rear plate and for the new top box that I have. So this is a 9-pound difference. So I actually added 9 pounds because I replaced the top box. Remember, this dry weight includes the boxes. So it's really 9 pounds that we're going to be calculating here. We have 2 pounds for auxiliary lights. I have 1.2 pounds for the handguards. We have 0.88 pounds for the windscreen extension. I have 0.28 pounds for my seat cover, 0.68 pounds for my phone holder, 5 pounds for my center stand, and then I have, you know, the weight of my everyday riding gear, which is 19 pounds, and I myself weigh 306. So on a full tank of gas, the bike in total, with all of the upgrades that I've added, the way that it was generally set up before I stripped everything down, is 429.44 pounds. That leaves us with a 255.56 pounds of load capacity. And that is not very much, folks. It's not very much at all. So on the daily basis, while I was actually commuting to work, we were overloaded by almost 70 pounds. Okay. And this is commuting. Okay. Now, usually, as far as the gas is concerned, I usually fill it back up when it gets to about a gallon. So on the low side of things, okay, the bike weighed 413.24 pounds, or I had a capacity of 271.76 pounds. Okay, so pretty much we have a overloaded swing here from 69.44 pounds in between 53.24 pounds. So anywhere in between there is what I was generally, you know, riding the bike with. Okay, so let this be known. Just PSA, be careful about how much you're loading up your bike, and potentially you definitely would potentially go over. Be mindful of the amount of upgrades you're putting on it, and do yourself the due diligence of calculating all these things out. I mean, so far, the only things that I have definitely noticed, again, handling, brakes, all the things that you would see in articles. But with this test, we're going to determine whether or not it's actually going to have an impact on engine reliability. Okay? And before we get into the actual weight reduction items, I'm going to let you guys see what was actually inside of the boxes first, because with some of these, like for example, we have the rear crash guards and passenger pegs. Like, I put all the little bolts and, you know, miscellaneous components inside of the boxes themselves, so that way I don't, you know, lose anything. So I just wanted to let you guys see what's in those boxes here shortly, and then we'll come back to this. Hey guys, I wanted to come back out here to let you guys see what was actually inside of the boxes, to give you guys an idea what's in there. I have like the passenger pegs and other parts like miscellaneous parts of the crash bars and their bolts and stuff, just because I didn't want to lose everything. Try to keep everything together as much as possible. Just bolts in that one. Yeah, it's a smaller box anyway, so not much stuff fits. But yeah, I'm out here at night right now because I really need to adjust the lights on the bike, because I did reposition them to be toward the front. So I just wanted to adjust them to make sure they're in the proper angle, and then we'll see you guys tomorrow, and we'll do the valve adjustment tomorrow. Okay, so now that you guys have seen what was actually in the boxes, we're going to go over in detail how much everything weighed and how much weight reduction we have in total now. So starting with the rear crash guards, the passenger pegs boxes, within those boxes I had all the different brackets, all the different bolts, rear passenger pegs. I also had the skid plate that protects the bottom of the engine in there as well, and all in total that came out to about 29 pounds. Okay, the front crash guards, again with all bolts and brackets, we have about 12 pounds. The rear top box by itself is 15 pounds. All the fenders and bolts that I removed, that's every single fender on the bike. I believe the windshield is with that as well. That's 11 pounds. We have the passenger seat and the emergency toolkit, that's 5 pounds. So in total, the total weight reduction that we have achieved is 72 pounds. So we've taken 72 pounds completely off of the bike. And now my weight obviously stays the same, at 306, but my gear, it changes. See, because previously my gear, I would just throw it in the box. But now I have to wear a backpack. So because I have to wear a backpack, now my total gear weight goes up 2 pounds for the backpack. So in total, all my gear is 21 pounds. So altogether, my total commute load is 327 pounds total. So how did we do? Well, we are literally skinning it by our teeth. Okay, on a full tank of gas, the bike now weighs 357.44 pounds. So this is, in the way that it's configured now, completely full up, this is how much it weighs now. Okay, and with me now being on it, minus the GVWR, okay, we come to a payload capacity of 327.56 pounds. So I'm literally half a pound under the GVWR, which is crazy. But nonetheless, we're still under. Okay, and as I continue to ride, that spacing gets even bigger. So at the lowest, which I always fill up maybe when I have about a gallon left, I'm 16.76 pounds under at that point in time. So we did it. We achieved being within the GVWR weight capacity, and now we're going to move on to doing the valve adjustment. Okay, hello everyone. It is the next day now, and today we're going to go ahead and do the valve adjustment. I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of the stuff off, and then we'll take a look at where the intake and the exhaust valves are measuring at currently, and we will adjust them into spec, and hopefully for this coming week we'll be able to ride much longer than we've been riding previously, or maybe even the issue will be resolved with all this weight reduction as you see here. Alright, I'm going to try to do all of this in one take for reference. And here we are at the center. We can focus on there. Hope you guys see that. Okay, and now we're going to check the intake valves first. This is the, yeah, there you go, 0.076 millimeter. This is the shim I've been adjusting the valves to for the past 2 valve adjustments. Okay. Okay. It fits. Slides in that pretty easy. That one fits and slides in that pretty easy. Great. So our intake is good. Let's look at our exhaust. Okay. Let me go ahead and zoom in here. Okay, hopefully you get this. In. Snag just a tiny bit. This one in the back. Okay, it's really snagging. Alright, so the exhaust, it's tighter, but it's not like extremely tight. The intake is great. This there, it's slightly tighter, and I don't know how much of an effect that has on overall performance, but yeah, these are definitely supposed to be just as loose as the intake exhaust. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust these, and then I'll show you where they're at once I'm done. Alright, so here is the final result. We have on this one, slip and slide, and then on the back it is also a slip and slide now. Okay, so hopefully they stay that way. And we'll just see how long this lasts. I do want to note with the valve adjustments that we've been doing on this new engine so far, it's been, the exhaust valves have definitely been the culprit both times now, and that's a pretty big change, pretty big difference from the old engine, where the old engine, both intake and exhaust were completely out of whack every time I opened the engine up. So hopefully they'll stay put this time, and especially with having the weight reduction, we'll get to see whether or not the weight or rider's weight plays a factor in the valves staying put. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the bike, well, I won't say back together, but just button it up, and then we'll run it, and we'll see where the idle's at. Alright, all the essential stuff is hooked back up again, and let's see where she's gonna idle at. Uh-oh. Not enough battery. Possibly. Alright, I've been letting the bike sit on the battery tender for a couple hours now, and I'm going to try to start it back up again. So here we go. Start it right on up. So I'm going to let her warm up, and then we're going to see what the RPM idle stays at. Alright, it's been warming up for a little bit. The needle kind of jumps slightly back and forth between 1500 and just slightly above it. So we're pretty much where we need to be. 1500 RPMs. So that looks good there. Yeah, we are all set to conduct this experiment. So as I stated in the beginning of the video, I'm gonna pretty much treat this whole experiment just like I did with my engine braking process. I'm gonna create a playlist. I'm gonna be uploading videos of each ride, and we're going to see how the bike performs during each ride. You guys will get to see exactly how it is that I ride the bike during my commute. You'll get to see exactly what type of RPMs I stay at, and we'll get to see if there's any changes, and hopefully we'll see potentially some drastic changes in how the bike overall handles and responds to inputs. I mean, we've lost quite a bit of weight, like a drastic amount of weight. So I'm curious to see how the bike overall handles now. Okay, so until next time, guys, stay safe out there. All right, peace. I guess this battery tender lead was not so useless after all. Yep. And looks like we are good to go.